Okay, so let's start off today. I'm here with Doug Perry. He's a senior loan officer from CrossCountry Mortgage, and we're going to talk about down payment assistance. And I see down payment assistance as being a big thing for especially first-time home buyers this year. So Doug is up on his down payment assistance, and we're going to talk to Doug and ask him a few questions. So how are you doing today, Doug?
I am doing great, Kevin. Thank you for having me. And this is all kind of new, fresh stuff because Mass Housing just recently came out with the details on the new down payment assistance programs that they're going to be releasing on March 18th. So all good stuff moving forward for first time home buyers.
Okay, and so we're talking about mass housing.
Mass Housing specifically, I mean, state agency. There's down payment assistance available in most states from
Okay.
bond agencies such as Mass Housing. But for the sake of discussion, we'll kind of focus on Mass Housing today.
Okay, so why don't you tell me a little bit about what is mass housing?
Mass Housing is a state agency that their primary focus is to provide affordable financing options to low to moderate income home buyers in the state of
Okay.
Massachusetts.
Okay. So low to moderate income borrowers is really what
Yep,
it's
exactly.
okay.
You don't necessarily need to be a first-time home buyer to get a mass housing mortgage, but you do need
Okay.
to be a first-time home buyer in order to qualify for the down payment assistance. There are certain times where a mass housing mortgage makes sense over a conventional mortgage or over an FHA mortgage, even if the borrower doesn't qualify for down payment assistance, because sometimes their terms are just better depending on the circumstances than what you may be
Okay.
able to get from Fannie Mae or FHA.
Okay. And so when we were talking about down payment assistance, my understanding is down payment slash closing costs even. Is
Yeah, no, absolutely.
that correct?
Yeah, you can use the down payment assistance towards the down payment, closing costs, prepaids. You can use it to buy down the interest rate to make the payment more affordable.
Okay.
It can basically be used towards any home buying costs when you're going to purchase your first home.
Okay. So essentially someone could come to the table with very little money or no money, I guess, is what I'm hearing from you. If
Yeah,
closing
yeah. I
costs
mean,
are covered and down payment is covered.
yeah, and it's a great program for a couple different populations. It may be it's good for a buyer who doesn't have money for down payment. You know, they pay high rents, they don't have the ability to save money. Maybe if they have a lot of student loan debt and they just don't have the ability to save money on a monthly basis to build up that down payment. This program's perfect for them because it allows them to buy a house with little to no money out of pocket. It's also good for a home buyer, potential home buyer who does have money for down payment, but maybe instead of using the money that they have in savings for down payment, maybe they want to use it towards home improvements. Maybe they want to use it to pay off their student loan debt. So it's a good program for a buyer who has no money for down payment, but it's also good for a buyer who does have money for down payment who may want to use that money for something else other than the down payment on a home.
So do you have an example or two of maybe a situation where you used this recently with a
Yeah,
client or a borrower?
yeah. My most recent good example, the deal's actually in process now. I had a real estate agent reach out to me maybe a month ago. He had he had a client reach out to him and said, "Hey, I need help finding a rental." He's in one of those big apartment complexes. His lease is up. They're trying to make him sign a new lease. His rent's going to go up $500 a month, so he wants to find a new place. And the realtor said, "Listen, you've got," they got to talking about his situation. He's a young professional, makes very good money. He's got money in the bank. He just didn't think he had the ability to buy. He thought you needed to come up with 10, 15, 20% down. He didn't think he'd be able to afford a house comfortably. So the real estate agent said, "Well, if you're going to rent a place, the places he was looking at were $3,500 a month, and they were requiring him to come up with first, last, and security. So I mean, you're talking about coming up with $11,000 just to rent a place for 12 months." So the real estate agent put him in touch with me and said, "Why don't you talk to Doug and see if buying may be a reality for you now, as opposed to signing another 12-month lease and then, kind of kicking the can down the road, 12 months from now. So I talked to him. He's got great credit. He's got a great job. He makes plenty of money, and we got him approved for a no money down payment assistance program through MassHousing. He went out, he got an offer accepted. He paid $500 for the appraisal on a credit card. He came up with some earnest money because he had to, show the seller that he was serious about buying the property, and the seller's not going to be willing to take the property off the market without some sort of earnest money deposit. But an earnest money deposit can be 2,000, it can be 10,000, whatever you're comfortable giving. And the way we have the loan structured right now, he paid $500 for the appraisal, and whatever earnest money deposit he's made when he made the offer and when he signed the purchase and sale, he's actually getting all of it back on the day of closing. So that's one recent success story.
So basically, he's bought a home with zero money.
Correct.
Wow.
$500 for the appraisal, and that can be paid for on a credit card. So
okay, that's
so
amazing.
he loved it. So instead of him, he thought his only choice was to rent the next 12 months at least while he saved up more money for down payment, or just I don't know, just some people just think they can't buy or they won't find a house. And I mean, probably finding the house is the most difficult thing in this market. But he went out the first weekend, looked at a couple houses, and got an accepted offer. And he's psyched, and he's closing at the end of this month.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So now we're talking about, essentially, we're talking a very low amount of money needed, or almost no money needed to buy a home.
Right.
We've got some qualifiers here. So what are some of the things that people need to know about qualifying for the loan? Obviously, I know there's income requirements, which
Yep.
actually are quite healthy, but also asset requirements. And is this for a first-time home buyer, someone moving up? Can they use it? Or why don't you tell me about that?
Someone moving up can use a MassHousing mortgage, but they won't qualify for down payment assistance.
Okay.
The restrictions for MassHousing, in order to qualify for any of their programs, whether it comes with down payment assistance or not, they have to have a 640 credit score, and that's true for their FHA mortgage and their conventional mortgage. And there are income restrictions. The income limits. There's two down payment assistance programs with MassHousing. One is the WFA program. That program offers $30,000 in down payment assistance. It's a deferred 30-year mortgage with an interest rate of 0%, so there's no monthly payment due on it. That program's a little bit harder to qualify for. The income limits are, I don't want to say they're low, but you've got, it's based on household size. So if you've got a husband and wife with 3 kids, the household income limit for a family of 5 is more than the income limit for a single guy or a single girl, because it's based on household size. I don't do as many of those because the income limits are a little bit lower. And then the other program is just their first time home buyer program, which right now, based on the changes that are coming through, the down payment assistance is $25,000. You have to take all of it. You can't really pick and choose and say, well, I don't really need that much. So it's $25,000. It works with their conventional program and their FHA mortgage. It's a second mortgage, and it's based on an interest rate of 2% on a 15-year term. So is it a grant? No. Is it a loan? Yes. If you sell the property, you need to pay that loan back because it's the second mortgage on the property. If you refinance the mortgage, you also have to pay it back. So this is just something you would need to consolidate into one mortgage. If we use these programs to get somebody into a home this year, and then interest rates go down next year and they want to refinance, they would need to roll that mortgage in and consolidate it in with the second mortgage. So
okay. And what about so you said $25,000?
Yep.
And is it no matter the price of the home? Is it up to, I think my understanding is it's up to 5% of the purchase price?
Yeah, well, I mean, now the purchase price doesn't even, I mean, there are acquisition limits too. Like you can't buy $1 million house with a MassHousing mortgage, but the acquisition limits are dependent on the county and state. But I mean, off the
Okay.
top of my head, not having all the stats in front of me, the acquisition limit in the high cost counties, Suffolk County, Middlesex County, Essex County. I mean, you're talking $800,000 for acquisition price limit. So,
Okay.
so that's usually a non-issue.
Okay.
The income limits also vary from county to county, sometimes from town to town. But same thing with the high cost counties that we typically deal in. Um, Essex, Middlesex. Depending on the town, I mean, there are some towns they call gateway cities where they'll actually allow the income limits to be a little bit higher because they're really trying to
Okay.
promote home ownership in those cities like Lynn, Lowell, Lawrence, where they're trying to promote home ownership as opposed to, just have the entire city owned by real estate investors and have it all be
Let's
tenants. But
let's touch on the gateway communities a little bit. There's 28 in Massachusetts, is my understanding, I think.
yep,
And
yep,
they're typically the older middle cities like Worcester, Brockton,
correct.
Haverhill, Lawrence,
Yep,
Lowell, Peabody, Lynn, up our area.
yep,
So if you're buying in a gateway city, there's some advantages with the loan program. You get a little bit, I guess, healthier criteria. Am I
yeah.
correct in saying
Yeah,
that?
they will do. The income limits um, are typically a little bit higher. They make it easier to qualify for because they want to promote homeownership in those particular cities. There are a few other programs within mass housing where the interest rate may be a little bit better if they buy in a gateway city.
Okay.
And there are a couple programs that don't typically come with down payment assistance, but they do come with down payment assistance if you buy in a gateway city. So
Okay.
some, the gateway cities, it can help you get, a little bit better interest rate and a little bit easier qualification requirements too. So
Now, what about PMI with these down payment assistance programs? Are they going to pay PMI, or is the PMI bill?
yeah. I mean, the FHA mortgage PMI is required. Mortgage insurance is required.
Okay.
If on any FHA mortgage, it's permanent if you put less than 10% down, and it lasts about 11 years if you put more than 10% down.
Okay.
The conventional mortgage, it's single families and condos. The conventional mass housing mortgage, it follows the same rule as a regular conventional loan. Once you hit
Okay.
20% equity, you're allowed to cancel it. When you hit 78% loan to value, it automatically cancels. The
Okay.
only time it's permanent is on multifamilies.
Okay.
Multifamily, conventional mass housing, the monthly PMI is permanent. So that's just something you need to
So that was
keep.
my next question. You can use the down payment assistance on single family homes, obviously,
Yep,
condominiums,
yep.
and then multifamily is up to how many units, Doug?
1 to 4, so up to 4 units.
Up to
The
4 units.
only,
Okay.
yeah, the only overlay with multifamilies is they want 3% of the down payment to come from the borrower's funds. So can you use down payment assistance to cover closing costs, prepaids, and then 2% of the 5% requirement? Yes. Um, and then with the FHA mortgage, there's no minimum borrower requirement. So you can have the down payment assistance to cover everything: down payment, closing costs, and prepaid.
So the other question that I have, we've covered the basics here. So now I'm going to get into some nitty gritty. Um, can the down payment assistance program be used in conjunction with other down payment programs?
Yeah, yep.
So like, I know here in Haverhill, if you buy in certain areas, you get a $15,000, I think, soft second.
Yep.
So you could use that in conjunction with the down payment assistance program.
Yeah, I mean, mass housing doesn't necessarily have any rules against it. The more assistance you can get from the city plus the down payment assistance from mass housing, they're okay with it.
Okay.
We have to kind of take it case by case because sometimes the city grants have rules on top of rules on top of rules. So we need to make sure it's not a problem with them. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, usually we try to, I do a lot of business in Western Mass, and the city of Springfield offers $4,000 in down payment assistance pretty easy to qualify for. So yeah, I mean, if we can use the $4,000 from the city, from any particular city, plus
Okay.
whatever Mass Housing's offering, yeah, absolutely, we'll use it.
Now, when we talk about the mass housing, like conventional loan, interest rates are competitive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say they're in line with
Okay.
what a traditional FHA mortgage or a traditional conventional mortgage is offering.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes we're able to use the down payment assistance to buy down the interest rate, which, if you're buying a house with a traditional FHA mortgage or a traditional conventional mortgage, if you want to buy down the interest rate, you're just increasing the closing costs. You're increasing the amount of money you have to come up with to try to reduce the
Okay.
payment. The good thing about mass housing is you're using a portion of the down payment assistance to help buy down the rate. And I've done that over the years. I had one particular situation where the buyer had some money. He was retired, so his income was limited and it was fixed. But he made a decent monthly wage from his retirement income. The problem
Okay.
with him is he had a car payment that was like $700 a month or something. So the car payment really cut into the amount he qualified for. I think he only owed like $12,000 on the car loan, but it was like a 7-year loan, and he had maybe 2 years left. And what we did with him is we got him approved for down payment assistance. We used the down payment assistance to cover down payment, closing costs, and prepaids. And then he had substantial savings. And what he did is he took $12,000 of his savings, paid off the auto loan to help increase his pre-approval. So instead of him with his car payment of $700 a month, he qualified for a purchase price around 350,000. In the communities he was looking for, it wasn't enough to
Well, I mean,
qualify for it.
by removing that car payment of $700 a month, that's worth what, $80,000 in purchase price on a
I
home?
mean, at the time, it was more like 125. So
Okay.
instead of him, buying a property in that 350 price point, we had him pay off his car loan at the closing. So we
You
came,
got
he spent twelve
closer
thousand
to
dollars at the
five.
closing. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And then he ended up buying. I think the condo that he ended up buying was like 475 or something. So,
Okay.
so we used the down payment assistance to help him, you know, purchase the property without using all the money he had saved up, and then we put the money he had saved up to better use it to pay off that big auto loan, and then it allowed him to qualify for the price point that he needed to qualify for in the market that he was looking for.
So, I mean, this sounds like a great opportunity for home buyers, first time home buyers to be able to
Yeah,
tap into it. So, my understanding from what you said earlier is the down payment assistance is actually a second loan
yeah, it's a second mortgage.
at
They
2%,
always,
you said.
yeah, there's basically two types of down payment assistance. One is a $30,000 down payment assistance with an interest rate of 0% deferred for 30 years. So there's no monthly payments associated with it. You're not making any monthly payments on that second mortgage. But if you sell the property or if you refinance the property,
Oh,
whether
okay.
it's
So
12
even though
months from now or
even the one that's at 2%, that just accrues interest.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
You're
okay.
so with the other program where it's $25,000, 2% on a 15-year term, you're making a monthly payment on that down payment assistance. So it's not a grant, not free
Okay.
money, but I mean, borrowing money at 2% on a 15-year loan, you're not going to find that anywhere else right now.
Yeah, that's not going to
Personal
be very
loan,
much
credit card.
money a month. Yeah, and you
No,
can
I
keep
mean
that
that 20,
money in your pocket.
exactly $25,000 amortized over 15 years at 2%. It's like $160 a month. So,
Okay.
um, so $160 a month to borrow $25,000 that you can use to buy a house, whether you need it because it's the only way you're going to qualify to buy, or use your own money for something better like that last example I gave you. So you can get creative with it to put people into a better
Well, and
financing
I think
situation.
that's part of our job is to help people sort out what makes sense here is
Yeah,
you better off paying down some student debt, are you a car
right,
payment, how are you best served by
right,
using
and
this
that
opportunity?
Right. And that, I mean, you need to be creative. You need to think outside of the box. That particular example was brought to me by a real estate agent, and this particular buyer had gone to his local bank and they were like, all right, you qualify for 350, go find a property, have a nice day. And then he brought that information back to the real estate agent. She was like, you're not going to find a property in your market for 350,000. So that's when she put him in touch with me, and then I came up with that game plan. So yeah, you gotta think outside of the box to help people get into a good position.
So qualifying for this program, best thing to do is get an application in and we'll make the
Yeah.
recommendations that need to be made.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, perfect situation. Somebody reaches out to me, I get them pre-approved, they're good to go. I give you a pre-approval letter, and then they go out shopping the next weekend.
Okay.
There are other people where it takes a little bit more time. Maybe, I mean, Mass Housing is very strict on debt ratios. Max debt ratio is 45%, and minimum credit score is a 640. So if somebody comes to me, they've got a 580 credit score, and they need down payment assistance. It's the only
Okay.
way they're going to be able to qualify. Then I put a game plan together for them and tell them, okay, so if you do this, this, and this, then we should be able to get your credit score up to a 640, and could be as quick as 2 or 3 weeks, could be 2 or 3 months, depending on what actually needs to be fixed on their credit.
So we're running out of time here. I want to try to pay attention to time. So best thing to do is just reach out to one of us and we'll
Yep.
get you set up and get rolling, and we'll take a look at your credit profile and see, what program you might fit into or programs that you might fit into.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to ask, and that's what we're here for. Not everybody who
Right.
comes to us today can buy today, but we can put things in place where maybe you can buy tomorrow. So
Right.
again, doesn't hurt to ask. A pre-approval is pretty quick, and we can see what programs we can get you into. Doug, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, there's down payment assistance available right now. I've been doing it for the last couple of years, but this new program with the higher income limits and the higher assistance amounts gets released on March 18th. But I'll put together some marketing flyers and get them blasted out on
Okay.
through social media. So yeah, let's see
Okay.
if we can help some
Super.
home
Well,
buyers out.
I'll make sure both of our information is available for people who want to reach out. And, as far as I'm concerned, talking to us is free. Doesn't hurt to
Yeah.
talk to us. And, sometimes people are very surprised that they can get into a home just by
Absolutely.
asking and
Right.
just taking the time to ask. So, Doug, I
Absolutely.
want to thank you today for all your information. And again, feel free to reach out to us and just talk. Thanks.
You got it. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks, Doug.